Good morning. I am Kevin Price. Delighted to be with you. Going to spend some time talking to you about you and your business. We're going to get straight into our first conversation. It's with John Hope Bryant. He is with a group called Operation Hope. And with a name like Hope, what else would you do for a living, right, John?
Absolutely. Be consistent.
Be in the hope business. You know, with a name like Kevin Price, what else would I do but host a show named The Price of Business? So,
Absolutely.
you know, we got to do something with our names. So, glad to have you on the program. I will admit on the front end, I haven't read your book entirely, but I have read parts of your book. I did find it interesting. But tell us a little bit about your background and your story.
That's a big question. I'll try to keep it.
Yeah, keep it
brief.
short.
Grew up in South Central LA in Compton, California. Parents who were struggling but aspirational. Mother who told me she loved me every day of my life, so I didn't have a self-esteem problem. My dad who owned his own business for 54 years, so I had a sense of yes, I can and yes, I am at a very young age. That plus a banker coming into my classroom when I was 9 and teaching me a course in financial literacy. Mind you, this was in South Central LA, so I asked the banker who was wearing a suit, what do you do for a living, and how do you get rich legally? And I was really serious, and he said, I'm a banker, and I finance entrepreneurs. And Kevin, I remember saying, I don't know what a banker is, and I don't know what an entrepreneur is, but if he's financing entrepreneurs, I want to be one. Mm-hmm. And the next year, I started my first business, neighborhood candy house, and made $300 a week. From neighborhood kids and put the liquor store out of the candy business, and that's what started me on my road. And that's really the second part of this book, How the Poor Can Save Capitalism, we've really redefined modern poverty. It has nothing to do with money. You can be poor at $30,000 a year or $20,000 a year, or poor at $125,000 a year, based on our definition of it. And it's reverse designed into my childhood experience that I just described to you.
Okay. Yeah, poverty is really a mentality. It's not so much an income bracket. And I've heard some moaning and groaning from 6 and 7, even 7-digit individuals. And it comes down to what you do with your money, but really what your attitude is about money more than anything else.
And of course, but beyond that or beneath that is your attitude about yourself, which is all connected.
Yeah.
So if I have low self-esteem, half of poverty is just lack of confidence in yourself. It's the opposite of you. It's a lack of self-esteem, it's a lack of belief, lack of confidence in yourself. That's half of all poverty. And that's why, while I'm talking about all people in America, and all people in the world actually, the book has been translated into 4 languages in 4 months, I'm really, the real easy example here is African-American poverty is much deeper psychologically than every other type of poverty in America because of their unique experience in this country. Of being told basically you're not valuable for 300 years. That has a devastating effect on your self-esteem. And, you can end up depressed. So, and then you got role models and you've got environment. You hang around 9 broke people, you'll be the 10th.
And I think there's a lot of truth about what you're saying. Have you ever read Ethnic America by Thomas Sowell?
No, but I'm very familiar with it. Yeah.
Yeah, and he talks about the difference between West Indian blacks versus those who were from African, origins, and that statistically, it's interesting that the West Indian blacks they make roughly within 95% of what whites make. And they're more likely to have professional positions than what whites are going to have. And in fact, they end up being the ones who end up serving the black community in professional positions. Are you familiar with that concept?
But it's not. I mean, it's just not a concept. It's just human nature. You have 40% of all Fortune 500 companies in this country are by immigrants. It's an immigrant mentality. It has nothing to do with race.
Well, it has according to Dr. Sowell, I wouldn't say it's my original theory. It has a lot to do with race, and because they had the same issue that blacks here on here in the United States had, and that they were enslaved just like they were here.
No, that's actually factually inaccurate. There were 36 million slaves came from Africa. 12 million landed in the islands, which is what he's talking about.
Right.
Another 12 million went to Latin America. 4 million came to America. The rest of them were shark bait, unfortunately. And,
right.
but America's the only place that actually harvested slaves. We went from 4 million to 40 million. It's completely different.
Oh, absolutely. I see what you're saying there. Right. But to say it was inaccurate that they didn't practice slavery, that's inaccurate because they did practice slavery in the West Indies.
Yeah, but they got their freedom and they went on about their lives and had
right. They did get their freedom, exactly.
Yeah,
and in fact, it was over
a white water fountain until 1960.
Right. I'm trying to have a conversation with you, though. I know you've got an agenda. We probably both do. But I am trying to have a conversation with you. The reality is that, yeah, they did get their freedom, and they got it in a much cleaner, better way than obviously what we did here. We had to have a ravaging civil war in order to make it happen in this country, whereas in that country, it was actually done in a very methodical way over a period of a number of years, and made it possible to really restore some of the hope of freedom, to that population. Whereas I think part of what happened in the way blacks got their freedom in this country is that it helped really fostered a mentality, and Dr. Soul has said the same thing, is that it fostered a mentality that the only way blacks improve themselves is through government action. And that has actually had a damaging effect on that population. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's a complicated story for a 5-minute interview. I'd love to get in a deeper context with you, but the reality is that if you're middle-class white and you've lost your job and you got another job at half the pay, your self-esteem is taking a hit.
Right.
And if two people on your street who made 6 figures lost their job and got a job at half the pay, then your role models are taking a hit, your environment's taking a hit, your ecosystem has taken a hit, your sense of aspiration, hope, has taken a hit, and your opportunity seems limited. So that person actually is poor. Now, what I'm saying is, if you deal with class, you get race for free. The reality is that most people in this country are struggling from paycheck to paycheck. Then if you want to give the black-white analogy, I just simply say, when white America has a headache, black folks have pneumonia. But we're all sick. And the reality is that the effects of, again, I'm not trying to make this a racial issue, but the effects of the unique African-American experience up till 1960 made black, I think that actually black America is probably 70% clinically undiagnosed depressed because of that experience. So you have to approach the solutions in these communities differently. Now, frankly, the matter is some of the most brilliant entrepreneurs I've ever seen have come out of the African-American community. Unfortunately, they're not called entrepreneurs, they're called drug dealers. So you have to ask yourself, what would have happened to Steve Jobs if he wasn't born into Silicon Valley, to a nice, stable, upper middle class family with resources and support and environment, but he was born into Compton, California, South Central LA, to a drug mommy and no daddy. So you have these brilliant young people, Kevin, who they're immoral. It's unethical. There's a special place in hell reserved for somebody who sells death to their own community, drug dealing. But one thing they're not is dumb. They understand import, export, finance, marketing, wholesale, retail, customer service, logistics. So you have these brilliant entrepreneurial traits that are just buried. And so that's part of what I'm trying to unlock. I
think it's phenomenal what you're actually doing when you look at it in that context. And I totally agree. My views have changed a lot, and I totally agree. And I see in the 21st century how white law enforcement officers engage with black youth compared to white youth. I see that. I see this kind of different mentality in the way this intercultural engagement is happening, and I'm very familiar with, addiction. I've seen addiction in my family, and they've got programs like Adult Children of Alcoholism, which I'm sure you're familiar with that program. Sure. And it's almost like the black culture is almost an entire ACA environment, largely an ACA environment where it's difficult to ever even grow up. And if you're going to function and survive, you're going to do it in ways that aren't healthy by any other cultural standard. I see that. I think it's very noble what you're trying to do to change that, and need to give you more time to talk about that too.
Well, thank you. I'd love to come back at some point, but I think it's important to say that rural whites, there are more poor whites in America than poor anybody else. And,
right.
We could say that the same analogy you just gave. I can give you a black, stable, middle-class family neighborhood that looks like Ozzie and Harrietville. I can tell you a rural white neighborhood that looks like Thugville, USA. So it's important that we don't generalize, but I think your point is accurate that when you grow up in an ecosystem where poverty is on top of poverty, then why is anybody surprised that people there are poor? Or if your only role models are rap stars, athletes, and drug dealers, why is anybody surprised that that's what they grew up wanting to be? That's really the larger point I'm making, is that Ferguson's not about race. That's about poverty.
Right. Yeah, well, yes, it is. It is absolutely about poverty, but it's not just economic poverty.
Oh, well, no, it's psychological poverty. That's the way I've described it, is obviously in the book, and you've admitted that you haven't read the complete book yet, and I look forward to talking again once you had a chance to get through it. But I'm breaking a lot of eggs, Kevin, in this book. This book is not like anything that anybody has read. I'm not an economist, yet the book is the only bestseller in the world on economics, authored by somebody who happens to be African-American. Well, when people read it, they go, you know what, this book is about me, too. I'm white and make six figures, but this book spoke to me and my family. I think we've got to start trying to find a way to bring people together versus underscoring always all these rather uninteresting differences that tend to separate us. And my point is, of course, racism is real. I mean, Stevie Wonder can see racism is real. But it doesn't define nor absolutely limit your potential.
No.
So Ferguson is really about the fact there's no small business owners. There's no, to your point in your show, there's no entrepreneurs. There's nobody creating jobs. You know, the guy that created the Arab Spring, he didn't say death to America or I love Allah. He said when he lit himself on fire, I just want to work. That's what he said.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, another thing that went really awry, but yeah, absolutely. Hey, John Hope Bryant, I want you to encourage you to check out his book, check out his website. I think next time I'd like to get you on and not so much talk about your public policy initiatives, but the things you're doing to help communities churn this around. That's what I think I'd like to talk about in a future show, because I'm not sure if you and I would agree on the public policy side, to be honest with you. So let's focus on areas of agreement, and I think that we probably can find some.
Radio, though, Kevin.
What's that?
It makes for interesting radio.
It does. It absolutely does. It does. Hey, John, I appreciate you being on. John Hope Bryant and OperationHope.org, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Thanks for all you do.
You bet. When we come back, much more for you. Do want to remind you, best content here shows up over there at usdailyreview.com, and this is The Price of Business.